let's go on to now China. All right, I heard the people want to talk about that, don't they? Right, let's talk about China and link it to the reproduction of racism. I think the first thing to think about with China, which we often fall into the trap of as black people, is to forget that there's really two Chinas in terms of understanding China. And I'll say it like this. I did make a point earlier, didn't I, that I'm going to explain China through the idea of race. So two Chinas, revolutionary China and capitalist China as the workshop of the world today. Two Chinas. And I think one of the best ways to understand the two Chinas is through looking at two of our most celebrated leaders. And I'll make the link. I think you'll like it. We're going to talk briefly on about Malcolm X and also Huey P. Newton. Malcolm X, we know, was the African-American black nationalist international liberation leader. And then, of course, Huey P. Newton was the co-founder of the Black Panther Party in the latter part of the Civil Rights Movement. So Malcolm X, we all know, was part of the NOI, but then, of course, he made his visit to Africa. When he came back, he was a different man. There was an international dimension to Malcolm X, wasn't there, when he came back? I don't think it's fair to say that he was a Marxist, but I think it's fair to say that he saw our struggle in international terms. Because he would say, you're not going to understand the lynchings and the problems we have in Mississippi if you don't bother to understand what's going on in the Congo. So immediately he had an international dynamic to his understanding of racism. Okay? And that's really important. I'll link it to China in a minute. But he began to see that actually we need to fight on an international front. But its focus was still on Africa. He did acknowledge other non-white countries, but not to the degree that the other character that I'm, not a character, but Huey P. Newton. Let's whip over to Huey P. Newton. Huey P. Newton, he underwent a massive paradigm shift as well, just like Malcolm X. But he didn't go to Africa. He went in 1971 to the People's Republic of China. And when he came back, he had this massive paradigm shift. Because he saw the struggle in international terms, but slightly different. He said in an interview that, yes, I take on the understanding of Malcolm X, the black nationalism of Malcolm X, but I can't say that the Black Panther Party did everything that Malcolm X would have done. So what did he do? What was his paradigm shift about? His paradigm shift was about the fact that he took on the ideologies of Mao. So really, Huey P. Newton was a Marxist with black nationalism tendencies, but he was really a Marxist. Okay, he took on, and of course Mao was a Marxist as well. So this is where we link it to China. Mao, revolutionary China, was involved in the black liberation. He understood it. In fact, days after Martin Luther King had died, Mao had written a book which said, look, I really understand the importance of the black liberation struggles in the United States. So there was some synergy, and Huey P. Newton picked up on that synergy, and he was a Marxist with a black nationalist tilt as well. So there is a connection with China and revolutionary politics in the diaspora, particularly the United States, and to some degree here, because we did have some of the, we had synergy between the US and here. So there was a connection between China and black liberation tradition, which goes back to its history that it had with the anti-colonial struggles.
Sorry, my brother. Are you saying Huey P. Newton was a Marxist, or are you saying he bought into some of the Marxist ideologies when he went to China?
He was when he came back, he was certainly a Marxist. With the Mao take on it.
Yeah, that's how I'm seeing.
Absolutely,
That's how I'm reading that.
Absolutely, but he also had
Marxist tendencies before he went to China.
Yes, of course he did. But but what happened is it changed his perspective.
Yeah.
Just like when Malcolm X came, he changed his perspective. He became he still was a black nationalist, but it had to be seen through Marxist lens, which is a Maoist lens. Okay. But the reason I'm bringing Huey P. Newton up,
sort of see the whole struggle through the economy.
Exactly. I'm going to get to that. So the point is, Mao helped during the Black Liberation period. There was synergy. He understood. He wrote about it. But that also fed into the fact that during the anti-colonial struggles, there was a connection. You see, China, People's Republic of China, got involved with supporting Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, as we were having that discussion, Chico. Yeah. So there is a connection there. Now, this is the point that I'm trying to make now. In 1978, when Mao died, you can interpret that really the vision of Mao died with him. That we don't have a revolutionary China anymore. What we have is China as the capitalist economy, China as the workshop of the world. And it does appear that China is doing exactly what the United States is doing. It's taking over from the United States. Yeah. Just like the United States took over from Europe and Britain, you could argue that China is going to be the new world power, certainly in terms of the economy. You see? So I said earlier, didn't I, that it's possible to interpret what China's doing now as just, let me just get myself into a strong capitalist position. And of course, I'm going to be revolutionary at some point. Or you could say, no, this world is based on race, and that what China's doing is working with America to build up investments in Africa. I mean, just look, it's up to this point, I think it's 400 billion that China has invested in Africa. It's not all one way, though, but they purchase key infrastructures, mines and port. I don't know about you, but when I hear the word mine, I get very edgy, because I think, who's going to be down those mines? And the Chinese have purchased key mines. As I said, we're going to take questions and answers, brother, I promise. As I said, you can interpret it differently. If you see the world through a Marxist lens, you can say, well, the Chinese, all they're doing is making sure they're strong economically, okay, because we live in a capitalist world, and then it'll bring back some of its revolutionary attitudes. That might be true, but for me, personally, China is carrying out white supremacy. It joined the World Trade Organization in 2001, and its investments have gone up 20 times. So it's using its method, it's using economy it's using white supremacy to move up the ladder in the world. It's doing exactly what the United States is doing. Because the United States is declining. The G4, okay, we know they are the United States. Is Canada in that? I don't know. It's United States, Canada, Britain, France.
G7.
G7, exactly. Well, the BRICS is not just Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The BRICS has 22 countries in it. Indonesia joined the other day. So the BRICS is massive now. Yeah. So my point is, you can argue that China is simply carrying out white supremacy with the World Bank and IMF, but some of the loans that it's doing they're not just basic commercial loans. Some of them are unconditional. So it's possible for someone else to sit here and show that China is being quite fair. But how do you see things in the long run? I would argue that China is carrying out white supremacy.
Resources of Jamaica. So in any country what they go into where they give
unimaginable vast sums of money. They know that that money is attached to the resources of that country. So it's not the heads of whoever's running the country. They will take and seize that country's resources.
Yeah, it's very, very, very interesting. So really, then, it's a question of interpretation. But as I said, if you see the world through Marx's eyes, then you could say that all that China's doing is building its country up, and perhaps it still has a revolutionary mindset. But I would say no, it's exploiting Africa as we speak, and that is, of course, the reproduction of racism.